Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thanks for joining me tonight. It's Kyle Henderson, BamaInsider.com. Hope you had a good Sunday with your family. I know I did. Ready for a big week of college football and ready to talk about this Alabama versus LSU game. Now, LSU came away with the victory. It was the game we were all waiting for. And who knows, it could have been the national championship just early in the season, 46-41 with Alabama losing at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Big loss for the Crimson Tide. But as you saw today with the AP and coaches poll, hold those calls. I'll take your calls in just a minute. 205-686-3604. As you saw in both the AP and the coaches poll, Alabama is still fourth. And I think that means that the coaches and the AP, the voters, they respect Alabama's loss at home. I know the game wasn't perfect, but they respect that loss more than Georgia's 2 wins over Florida and Notre Dame. All right, I want to go through the stats. I want to break it down, and then I want to take your calls at 205-686-3604. I want to get your take on the game. I want to hear your thoughts. What went wrong for Alabama? Do you think Alabama could potentially beat LSU should those two teams meet again, which I think is a possibility? Guess we'll have to see. But let's go over the stats first of all, and then I'll take your calls at 205-686-3604. Here are the game stats. As you can see, so much yardage in this game. Look, LSU posted 559 yards of offense to Alabama's 541, over 1,000 yards of offense. What do you think? Is this on Pete Golding? Was LSU just a matchup problem? It looks like the corners just had a tough time all night long going against LSU's very dangerous wide receivers. Joe Burrow had a field day, 31 of 39 passing, 393 yards, 3 touchdowns, quarterback rating just under 200, 189.5. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, we talked about him. He was so dangerous in this game. 20 attempts, 103 yards, 3 touchdowns. Clyde Edwards-Helaire also had 77 yards receiving off 9 receptions. He was a bulldozer, right? Targeted 9 times and was just really tough for the Crimson Tide to handle on Saturday. You also had Justin Jefferson, who had 7 receptions, 79 yards, and then Jamar Chase, 140 yards. That's a lot of yardage. We really hadn't seen Alabama give up this type of yardage offensively since Clemson had their way with Alabama in the national title game last season, right? For Alabama, it was Tua Tagovailoa. He was 21 of 40. Nick Saban said he played like a warrior. He wasn't healthy, right? He wasn't 100% healthy, but he was healthy enough to play 4 quarters. I think he'll get better as the season goes forward. He posted, that he was playing off one leg on Instagram. Thought he did, a great job in the second half. That first half, who knows what happened? I don't know. I hadn't seen Alabama play like that since I've been here. Najee Harris, he did a great job yesterday. 19 carries, 146 yards with 1 touchdown. I thought that Alabama could have used him in the original game plan to start off the game, just because I think he's peaking at the right level. I thought they would have utilized him more. It wasn't until the third quarter until they really went to Najee, and I really don't like that call. It was a 4th and 1 where they went with Slade Bolden. You have Najee Harris who's running over everybody, and you go with Slade Bolden. Didn't like that call at all. He had 146 yards, and then receiving, Smitty goes for over 200 yards for the second time this season. 7 receptions, 213 yards. Jerry Jeudy, 5 receptions, 71 yards, being targeted 8 times. Smitty was targeted 10 times on the night. And, as you can see to the right side of the screen, LSU was 8 of 15 for third downs. Alabama was 6 of 15. It was a tale of 2 halves, really. When you look at the game, and I think I had those stats somewhere. I should have showed them, but second half compared to the first half, completely different game. Here's the cumulative stats for Alabama going into this week's contest against Mississippi State. By the way, Alabama is a 21-point favorite. Najee Harris up at the top left of your screen. 788 yards, 6 touchdowns on the season. Looks like he's going to eclipse a 1,000-yard mark if he continues to play the way that he's been playing. Wow, he's been playing excellent. Brian Robinson, didn't see too much for production from him yesterday. He has 359 yards in the season. Looks like he's just having trouble getting going. Tua Tagovailoa, 2,500 yards in the season, 31 touchdowns. And then Jerry Jeudy, 753 yards, receiving with 9 touchdowns. Devontae Smith, 50 receptions, 934 yards, 11 touchdowns. Henry Ruggs, 518 yards. Jalen Waddle, wow, that 77-yard punt return was about electrifying a football play, as you'll see all season long. That really spurred the momentum for the crowd in that first half. That was really the only positive thing that happened in that first half for Alabama when you look at this game. As we look at the defensive cumulative stats, you see that Xavier McKinney is leading this team in tackles. Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. You're not supposed to have your secondary players lead the team in tackles, but he's doing a great job. 69 tackles on the season, 56 tackles by Anthony Jennings, who I thought did a great job last night. Shane Lee, 53 tackles. Christian Harris, didn't see a lot of him last night. Saw more of Markel Benton. Jared Maiden has 40 tackles on the season. Raekwon Davis finally got his first sack of the season last night. And here are the AP and coaches polls. Hold those calls. I'll get your calls in just a few minutes. LSU at the number 1 spot, 9-0 Ohio State. So the pollsters like those top 3 teams the same. And the 4 through 5. Really, I mean, it's all the way the same actually through 1 through 7. And I think it'll be interesting to compare these to the playoff committee. Is the playoff committee going to slide Georgia ahead of Alabama for that top 4 spot? Now, remember, Georgia does have 2 top 10 wins, but that loss to South Carolina was ugly. Whereas Alabama, they didn't play the best game against LSU. They played terrible, right? In that first half especially, but they didn't lose by that much. I mean, 46-41 against LSU. Now, Georgia didn't play well at all against South Carolina, and Alabama beat South Carolina head-to-head, right? So there's that. Minnesota jumping up in there after beating Penn State. Oregon is that team that I think moving forward, you got to keep an eye on. And when we look at the college football playoff rankings, needs to be updated. This will be updated on Tuesday night. Ohio State was number 1, LSU was number 2, Alabama was number 3, Penn State was number 4. So that's all going to change. It should be Ohio State or LSU. I would assume it's going to be LSU after that victory last night. And then it's going to be Ohio State, probably Clemson. And then that 4 spot, I'm curious to see who they slide into the 4 spot, because what it means for the playoffs going forward. I thought, and I was thinking about this today, I thought that Auburn has to beat Georgia this weekend. That's not necessarily the case. I think that LSU just has to win out, right? And Alabama has to win out. I think it's as simple as that. If Alabama wins out and they finish the season with only 1 loss and LSU is the number 1 team in the playoff rankings, how can you leave Alabama out when they've only lost 1 game on the season, which came against LSU? Am I making sense, right? All right, I'm going to open up the call line. I want to take your calls. I want to talk about this game. I want to talk about the playoff rankings. 205-686-3604 is the number to call in. Coming to you from beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama. The game yesterday was electrifying. I mean, it was really incredible. And, it was just such a great atmosphere to be a part of, right? I mean, the crowd was on their feet from the get-go. The president was in town. College Game Day, SEC Nation. And I think when you look at this game overall, I got the stats right here. Call line is open, by the way, 205-686-3604. I think when you look at this game overall, we got our first call of the night. All right. Hello, you're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Who I'm on the line with and where you calling in from?
Hey, it's Antonio from Huntsville.
Hey, what's up, Antonio? How you doing, buddy?
Doing all right, man.
Man, that was quite a game yesterday. The first half was really hard to wrap your head around. They hadn't played that bad since the national title game.
And look, that's exactly what the game reminded me of in the first half. When it was 33-13, I was like, oh, here we go again. Joe Burrow looking like Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
And our defense can't get no stop on nobody. I'm like, man. And then I can feel the energy of the game when we had a turnover. We was marching down the field. We looked like we was about to get ready to score before Tua lost the fumble. And I felt the energy of the game where they kept scoring and we couldn't stop them, and we're getting 3 and outs and all that. I felt like normally when Alabama lose, I could feel like if we don't capitalize on drives in the red zone, then we end up missing the field goal, anything like that. The game ends up turning on us, and the other team scores and all that. Next thing you know, it creates momentum for the other team. We just, I know I had a feeling it was gonna come back in the second half and make adjustments, but whenever we got close, it's like they kept putting the foot on the gas. It's crazy, man.
I think that first drive, Alabama came out. And I mean, they were completely dominating that first from the kickoff, right? They go right down the field, and then I have no idea how that football fell out of Tua's hands. That was, I mean, it didn't get stripped. It just literally fell out. And then LSU marches down the field. I mean, it was a 6-play, 92-yard drive, lasted just 2 minutes and 46 seconds. Joe Burrow hits Jamar Chase, 33-yard touchdown. And then Alabama's down 7-0. Crowd was down. And then Alabama comes down. They have to punt. Ty Perrine, who's been pretty good and did a good job last night besides the botched punt, and it's 10-0. So things just were kind of spiraling out of control. What do you think about that? What do you think about the decision by Nick Saban and Steve Sarkisian to come out right before halftime? There's less than a minute left and try to make something happen. Did you like that call of them trying to be aggressive? I mean, hindsight is 20/20, but I didn't like that call going in. I think the way that the first half went, you get out of there, you get into the locker room, and you try to just try to figure something out. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I think they was confident in, how our offense operate. We can score quick sometimes or whatever.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't there. I don't know what. I guess Tua didn't see that linebacker. He just jumped right in front of Jalen Waddle, just picked that off. And I was like, man, I hope they don't score. At least kick a field goal. If they are going to score. Mm-hmm. But they threw it right to the back. I think Markel Ben was supposed to be on Hilaire, but he didn't match up with him. And next thing you know, he scores. And then I'm like, man, this feels like a Clemson game again. So, and I just feel like we still growing. Obviously we're not that good on defense as we were, a few years back. Maybe even worse than last year. It is worse than last year.
Yeah.
But I'm like, man, I like, and then people throw out, excuse. I feel like it's an excuse. It might be true, but I feel like it's excuse now. We just got 2 inside linebackers. They're freshmen. I mean, like, bro, eventually they gotta grow up.
Sure.
They gotta grow up. Mm-hmm. We're giving up a lot of yards and a lot of, we gave up yards to Tennessee and Arkansas and all that. It eventually is going to catch up to us against a better team because it's all about competition. Mm-hmm. Because if you're giving up plays against, Arkansas, you can't cover the back, other teams are going to see that. And they did that. It's the little things that's going to catch up, other teams are going to see. And then we just got to keep figuring out what's the best personnel out there, because right now, obviously, something is wrong on the defensive side to where we don't have the best personnel against certain teams, and it's catching up to us. We got to figure out soon though, because I really don't like when we're if we're iffy about if we're going to go in the playoff or not. It's better to know, we beat them, we're in the playoff, but now we're a little iffy. I hope we get in. I hope Ohio State, Ohio State lose to Penn State, whatever. But we're just not in a good position, right now.
Yeah, I think, to get to your point defensively, this team has had trouble with, running backs that aren't to Clyde Allaire's status. And last night, Clyde Allaire proved that he was the man on the field. You look at his stats, nine receptions, 77 yards, and then rushing wise, he had 20 carries, 104 yards. And, that's unbelievable, right? Almost 200 yards of all-purpose yards, because I believe he had a kick. He had a kick return for 20 yards. So he had over 200 all-purpose yards against Alabama. Joe Burrow, I think he locked up the Heisman Trophy as well. So, he rides out, right? He had his Heisman moment. He came to Bryant-Denny. He did work. He looked like a better Trevor Lawrence. This was a guy who just came in and dominated that Surtain and Diggs, especially Diggs. They had some problems last night. Shaheem Carter, there was a couple times I was like, yikes, right? He was caught off guard. LSU had a game plan. Orgeron came into Bryant-Denny, and now they're the number 1 team in the country, and rightfully so. Let me ask you this, Antonio, because it was a game. If you look at the second half, Alabama came back, showed a lot of fight, showed a lot of adversity, and I think that last touchdown, which was an 85-yard bomb from Tua to Smitty, right? It makes the game closer, 46-41. I think that's a very important touchdown, because that's going to be a touchdown and that creates a score that's very close between these two teams. Should Alabama and LSU meet again in the future, whether that's, let's just say it's a hypothetical 1-4 matchup in the playoffs in Atlanta, Georgia at the Peach Bowl, does Alabama have enough on defense to beat LSU, or is it just going to be whoever scores to 77 points first wins?
That's a really good question because, this LSU team, you really don't, they're a little unpredictable. Now, you don't know what they're going to do on offense now. Mm-hmm. But I think with time to prepare, we'll be all right if that is the case. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure Nick will, Nick's seen it all, So I think he'll have to, I think he'll come up with good personnel against LSU because, we already have tape, what we done wrong, who was out of place, what the bad matchups were. I think with good time like that, we'll become better prepared next time. But in the meantime, right now, we need to worry about winning out and worrying about who has who gives the best personnel on defensively, because even the guys that was big names, who've been here more than a year or so, they were playing terrible. Teron Diggs, instead of making the tackle and wrapping it up, he trying to script the ball and Herrera, pushing them, and then next thing you know, he in the end zone.
Yeah.
And then, everybody trying to strip. I noticed that last night. Everybody trying to strip the ball, wasn't trying to tackle them. Man, that's how they got the last first down, because we wasn't wrapping up. We was trying to strip the ball. He gonna get more yards trying to. That's a big man. He's not gonna go down like that. You gotta wrap him up and get him by the legs and get him down.
It was. I think you're right. I mean, a lot falls on the defensive side. There was I think the first half play calling on Sarkisian's part, I didn't like the first half script. The second half, the defense their vulnerability showed, and I think in the final quarter, LSU had two drives that went 75 yards. They just went right down the field and just put it in the end zone. I mean, that's you can't do that, right? That's unacceptable for Alabama's defense. I mean, for them to allow over 500 yards and nearly 50 points at Bryant-Denny Stadium, some adjustments have to be made. I know Markel Benton was in there a lot last night, but something has to be fixed if this team wants a shot at Clemson again, or has a shot at LSU or Georgia, whoever it may be, Ohio State, because this team does not have the defense to win a national championship. So, Antonio, I appreciate you calling in. Please call again next time. A lot to discuss. I'm gonna move forward, but I appreciate you calling in.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thanks, buddy. All right, 205-686-3604. I think it's clear that Alabama has the offense, right? I mean, even with what was percentage status of Tua last night? Like 80%? I mean, there was times he showed that he was ginger, maybe he didn't have the confidence running on it, but I mean, in terms of throwing it downfield, I mean, he did a great job. And how about this? How many drops were there last night? I mean, the drops were unacceptable. Hey, what's going on? You're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Who I'm on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
Yeah, it's Edward from San Diego, California.
Hey, what's up, Edward? Good to hear from you again.
How
I
you
appreciate
doing?
you calling in.
Yeah, thank you. How was your Sunday? Good?
Yeah, no, it was great. It was restful. I mean, yesterday I was at college game day in the morning, so that was like 7 a.m., and then I stayed the entire time because checking in, there was a lot of security, obviously, with the president being there, and then you stay for the game, you stay after for the post game. So it was a great day. Really took time to really soak it in because you don't get matchups like that too much in college football. So it was a lot of reflecting today, and I'm ready to talk about this game and kind of rehash and talk about moving forward. So thanks for calling in.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, I want to bring up a few points. Yeah, I noticed that Patrick Surtain yesterday was playing like 7 yards off the receiver, and it seemed, I don't understand why he was doing that. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I think, in a situation like this, I mean, LSU, as we talked about, has very dangerous wide receivers that were going to create challenges for Alabama's corners. And I think when we look at that matchup today, you see that LSU's wide receivers won those matchups. I mean, these are future NFL guys. I'm not sure what exactly if they didn't want to press those guys or if they didn't feel confident pressing those guys, but they certainly paid for it. I mean, Joe Burrow looked incredible. He looked like the best quarterback in all of college football, like we've been talking about going into this game, and he certainly shined on a big-time stage.
Yeah, yeah, he did. A couple other things. I noticed, and I was listening to you a little bit ago, but I noticed it seemed like, especially like on the first 2 or 3 drives, that our Alabama, the offensive play calling was very conservative.
Yeah.
And once we opened up in the second half with the play calling, I noticed it picked up. I was just wondering, do you have any idea why you think they were conservative? Was it to protect Tua, or was it, or what do you think your reasoning was on that?
I don't know. I mean, that's kind of something that I'm trying to still figure out, because I didn't it didn't seem like they had any rhythm besides that first series, right? That first series was magical. They came out, they moved right down the field, got into the red zone within 2 or 3 plays, and then the fumble happened. And then after that, it just seems like they didn't have any sort of rhythm, and the momentum got on them. And I'm proud about this team because they didn't. This is a team that hasn't faced adversity all season long. Yeah, they've dealt with injuries, but in terms of being down, I was curious to see what would happen when they came out at halftime. I personally didn't think that they would come back, even with the talent that they do have. But the play calling in the first half, I didn't like it. I didn't like the script when they came out and they were trailing 10-0. I didn't like the call with Slade Bolden, as I mentioned earlier in the show. I'm not sure, what Sarkisian had drawn up that first half, where they were trying to take the mismatches from LSU, but the second half, when they really just let it go and they started to play their game, I thought it was great. Another thing, as I mentioned earlier, so many drops by these wide receivers, and I think the last time we saw these receivers drop passes like that was against Clemson, right?
Yeah, correct. Judy had like 2 or 3 big drops yesterday. I noticed that.
Yeah, he had that touchdown drop. I mean, it was right in his hands. I mean, these guys are some of the best in the business, and when we were looking at Pro Football Focus, I know people don't like to compare those Pro Football Focus grades, but the LSU wide receivers are graded higher than Alabama's 3 wide receivers head to head. And I think last night they showed you why. I mean, those guys came out and they did a great job. Very tough to deal with, big wide receivers. They didn't drop the football. LSU didn't drop the football. And there was I mean, Tua's numbers are still impressive, though. 418 yards, 4 touchdowns. Devontae Smith, 200 yards. How about Devontae Smith? He's gone after this season, right? I mean, he's an NFL first-round draft pick. I mean, 213 yards on last night, 2 touchdowns. So a lot to wrap your head around. Edward, I want to ask you, when we look at the top teams in college football, is this one of the top 4 teams in college football despite the defensive vulnerabilities that they've had?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that. Yeah, I really feel that they are, because here's the way that I look at it. Okay, for example, if we win the next 3 games, which I'm pretty sure we will, and we beat Auburn bad, which I think we will, and let's say it comes down between us and Oregon for that final 4th spot, Oregon got beat by Auburn.
Yep.
And I honestly feel that, like, if Alabama was to play if Alabama was to play Oregon on a mutual site, I think Alabama would be favored by at least 7 to 10 points.
Yeah.
I feel like, I understand LSU won, so you have to give them credit, but I feel like we had sloppy missed tackles yesterday, the 2 unforced fumbles, one by Tua and one by the punter. LSU didn't cause those. Those were just sloppy play.
Great point.
And with all the drops from the receivers, I really feel like if we do get in, I feel like LSU does not want to play us, because I definitely think we can beat them without a doubt. But I just wanted the last thing I also want to bring up is Oregon, when he was, I guess, in his press conference in the locker room after the game, he was using all kinds of foul language and cussing, and his players were ranting and raving. I just feel like that's very disrespectful, because you would never see Nick Saban do that. You know what I mean? And the Alabama players have class. So I was just wondering if you heard about that as well, about the Oregon cussing in the locker room.
Yeah, I saw him. First of all, Orgeron is completely fired up. I mean, this is a guy who's been wanting to beat Alabama since he signed the paperwork. And signing the paperwork at LSU, you have to beat Alabama. That's a prerequisite to get that job and to keep that job. So he just extended his job. And if he wants to go anywhere else, anyone's going to give him a shot, because he beat Nick Saban head-to-head at Bryant-Denny Stadium, something that hadn't been done in 31 games. So is it right to go off the field and, act like that. I don't know. I mean, these guys are, full of emotion. It's after a game. Would Nick Saban do that? Who knows? I mean, we don't see all this stuff that's in the locker room. We've seen Nick Saban get fired up before. Does Bryant Denny belong to Ed Orgeron? No, of course not. Last night it did. But, Tiger Stadium, and does that belong to Nick Saban? Probably more so than it does Bryant Denny to Ed Orgeron. So these coaches are fired up. It was a big victory for LSU. They came in. They proved they were the better team head-to-head. I'll be eager to see if they can close out, because that is a very good football team with a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. That they did a great job just coming in, executing. And as you said, those costly miscues by Alabama, a couple of those were just self-imposed. I think that interception right before halftime, that was on Tua, and that really led to the ultimate score in the game being 46-41. Great overall matchup. I love to see these two teams go at it. I don't know if Alabama has the defense to stop them, but then again, does LSU have the defense to stop Alabama? I mean, I could see that rematch being like 60s in the 60s or something like that. It'd be crazy. But
yeah, and did you notice that the refs blew a lot of calls that went against Alabama, like on the Waddle touchdown on the return? How did they not call the face mask on that?
I don't know. His helmet, I'm lucky, he's lucky his helmet stayed on, right? And then how about Thaddeus Moss? I mean, he clearly stepped out.
I agree. That was another one.
That was a huge call, because right after that, LSU scored a touchdown. So there was a couple things, but I don't think the penalties I'm looking right now, let's see, Alabama had 7 penalties for 53 yards. LSU had 4 for 35 yards. There was a couple penalties, but this game came straight down to LSU had a better game plan. They executed better. Maybe not even a better game plan. They just executed better, right? Head to head. They just executed better.
They made the plays when they had to, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the last thing is, Kyle, what I wanted to say, so to answer your question earlier, yes, I definitely think that Alabama is clearly one of the top 4 teams. I actually think if they don't make as many mistakes, I think they're the top team in the country. I know their defense is a little shaky. But, so I feel like if we win out, I think we'll definitely get in. And if Auburn beats Georgia this week, I think that actually helps us as well also. And then, of course, if LSU beats Georgia, whoever they play in the SEC championship, and we went out. But you would definitely agree, though, correct, that you think that if we went out and Oregon wins out, we should get in, though, right?
Yeah.
Based on the fact that if we beat Auburn bad and they lost to Auburn.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. So there's a couple things that we're looking at for the playoffs. And number one is Alabama has to win out. LSU has to win out. I think that bodes well if LSU continues their momentum and they just fly into the college football playoffs as a ranked number 1 team, right? Especially beating Georgia in the SEC championship. Now, it would also help if Georgia loses to Auburn and then Alabama beats Auburn. That would certainly bolster Alabama's quality wins. But I think you make a great point. I don't see Oregon losing. I think they're going to beat Utah and finish as the Pac-12 champ and be that one team that the seeding committee is really looking at. But guess who they lost to in the first week of the season? They lost to Auburn on a neutral site. And I think if Alabama was – and I think it'll come down to this. If Alabama beats Auburn, they'll beat Auburn on the road, right? Whereas Oregon couldn't even beat them on a neutral site setting like you said. So Alabama wins out. I really like their chances. At first I was like, they lost. This is a critical game. They don't have enough on the schedule of strength. But now that I look at it and I see that the coaches and the AP have Alabama 4, I'm more confident today that Alabama, all they have to do is just win out along with LSU. And I think everything will be good for Alabama to, again, make the college football playoffs, bypassing the SEC championship. This will be the second time it's happened.
Yeah, it happened in 2017 when we won the championship. Yeah. Kyle, I just want to say you're awesome, and I love your show, and I love how you shoot straight, and you don't just go with your heart. You give the facts. So I just want to say you're awesome and appreciate all your hard work, man.
Hey, thank you so much, Edward. I appreciate it, man. I'll catch up soon.
All right, thank you.
All right, Edward from San Diego, always with the nice, clear call. I appreciate the quality of that call. It always comes in so nice and crisp. Call line is open, 205-686-3604. We're talking Alabama and LSU. It's the recap. If you didn't see it, Alabama opens up as a 21.5-point favorite over Mississippi State this weekend in Stark Vegas. You ever been to Stark Vegas? Sound off in the comment box. I went there a couple years ago. Their tailgate was unbelievable. It was it went for miles and miles and miles. They almost beat Alabama, actually, and it's probably the loudest football stadium in the SEC because they ring the cowbells. which is, I mean, it's a loud stadium. It's a very loud environment. Alabama, coming off this loss, you got to think that Alabama refocuses, comes out, and, they get down to business. The game is actually at 11 a.m. Central Time, which I'm kind of excited about because we're driving from Tuscaloosa to Stark Vegas. It'll give us time to drive there in the morning and then drive back and, get back for the call-in show on Sunday night. So call-in line is open, 205-686-3604. Oh, man, that was a electrifying atmosphere. When the lights turned on at Bryant-Denny Stadium, that's when Alabama found their mojo, and they started coming out swinging. And you look at the second half production by Alabama. I thought they were going to put some points on the board when Terrell Lewis got that fumble or that interception, whatever that was, but Alabama still couldn't convert. And then how about the play of Najee Harris in the third quarter? There's actually only one touchdown scored, oddly enough, in the third quarter, and that came Najee Harris caught that 15-yard touchdown pass. Najee Harris, get this. He had 91 yards. Yes, 91 yards of total offense alone in the third quarter. So my question is, when you talk about the play calling, when you knew that Tua wasn't 100%, why not come out and feed Najee to start this football game yesterday? I know that first drive they were rolling, but why not have more production from him? Why not give it to him on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, inside the goal line? I'm kind of curious about that play calling. The second half was just, hey, we're down. We got to go out and use our speed and our outside weapons, and that's what Alabama did. I mean, you look at what they did in the fourth quarter. They had a 1-yard score from Najee. They had a 5-yard pass from Tua to Judy, and that drive was actually, lasted 4 minutes and 35 seconds, and then Devontae Smith caught that 85-yard pass, which could actually save Alabama's season to keep them alive in the playoffs, right? If Alabama loses 46-34, that looks ugly. That's a 12-point loss. It's a lot different than a 5-point loss, right? Call line is open, 205-686-3604. Want to get your calls and comments regarding this game. I know a lot of people were going after Nick Saban, saying that Nick Saban has lost it, that this dynasty is over. I think it was Feinbaum who said, that Nick Saban has lost now his 2 high-profile games back-to-back. That's against Clemson, against LSU. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that Nick Saban has been surpassed? Do you think, that now it's not so much of a defensive-minded team because this is a more spread-type team? Do you think Alabama's vulnerabilities are just strictly because they have so many freshmen starting on defense? Do you think this is on Pete Golding? I know a lot of people talking about Pete Golding, and, Nick Saban has defended him this year, said that, this is a young defense, and it's going to take time for these guys to grow up. But as Antonio said, I mean, how long are they going to be freshmen? At this point, they should starting to be turned into sophomores. I saw a lot of Markel Benton last night. Looking at the defensive stats, Xavier McKinney had 13 tackles. That's a safety with 13 tackles. Jared Mader, another safety, had 11 tackles. So where are the interior defensive linemen and the linebackers? Where are their tackles, right? Trayvon Diggs, he had 10 tackles on the season, or on the game as well. Anthony Jennings had 8 tackles. Anthony Jennings played great. Terrell Lewis played great. I mean, those guys certainly got after the quarterback. But one of the things that also stood out to me about last night's game is how the escapability of Joe Burrow, right? I mean, so many times it looked like the pocket was collapsing, and Joe Burrow was able to be athletic enough to just step out and extend plays. I'm looking at the stat sheet here. I think he had 60 yards of offense running. And, all right, wow, all the calls came at once. Hello, you're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Who I'm on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
Hey, this is John. I'm calling from Tennessee.
Hey, John, how you doing? I appreciate it. Is it John? Did you say John?
Yeah.
All right, John. I appreciate you calling in. What's going on, buddy?
Yeah, man. I'm glad I could make it onto the show. Basically, I'm watching your show right now. I'm glad I got the chance to call you in. Of course, I was watching the main game last night. It was the biggest game of the year, obviously, and it hurts to lose, but it's all respect. Coming back from the day after, it's a lot of respect to you and Coach O, and especially what the Tigers have definitely shown forth thus far this season. It's clearly the eye of the Tiger this year, and got to give credit to that. I mean, they showed up to play, they wanted it, and they certainly deserve to win. I think, we, for what it's worth, we have a young team. We have a very young defense. I mean, for the playoff perspective, I mean, I think next year it'll be a better chance, you know, in the long term of things. It's just all maturity. I mean, I know this team really came over adversity when they came back in the second half. They had to show up to play, and, you know, all you can do at this point is win out. And, you know, they will. I think they have every determination at this point, knowing that we have one loss on our plate, whether we get into the playoff or not. You know, it's really all up to what the team wants. How bad do you want to win? How bad do you want to get in there? And, you know, it's all just part of it. It's any given Saturday, you go out there and you give your all. Any team can lose. And I know it's a bit shaking for Alabama fans, but we know at this point what a loss feels like, and we give nothing but respect to the Tigers coming from LSU to be who they are, to show up and show a great game in Tuscaloosa. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that, because coming up in the playoff, depending on Oregon and Utah game, it's weird to say this, but I feel like even if Alabama does win out, are they able to go into the playoff and successfully win? I mean, showing up with the defense as young as it is, where would you think we would stand? I mean, do you think we have a chance to play off against someone like Ohio State, knowing we have to really push ourselves to have that adversity, come in with the determination and confidence, coming off of a young team? I mean, half of our defense is all freshmen, you know, and I mean, we have stellar wide receivers. They're always ready to go. I mean, you can toss the ball to anybody, Smith, Ruggs, Judy, even, Waddle. So I wanted to get your perspective on that, and what do you think the playoff prediction is going to look like? I mean, if I'm going to lay it down in my mind, you know, LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, Oregon has a chance. But if you could predict the rest of the season towards what we could get outside of a New Year's Six Bowl, I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, well, first of all, I appreciate you calling in. I think when you look at this team, they really need to focus on defense, because the offense is obviously there. I think the health of Tua will only get better as the season goes forward. I mean, we saw that, you know, he played, I would say, probably 80% last night, and he was still effective, 418 yards, and I mean, he had 4 touchdown passes. But I think, you know, when a lot of people, you know, say it's on Pete Golding, I think, just like you said, I mean, this is a very young defense. I mean, these are the guys that they have. I mean, there's no one else on the bench. And as Nick Saban has said many times, it's not like Shane Lee and Christian Harris had other guys to even emulate to play inside linebacker, right? Because the older guys, Dylan Moses, Joshua McMillan, those guys have been injured from the start of the season. So these guys are learning as they go. And I knew that they would get picked apart and have trouble with LSU, just because Joe Burrow was so successful across the middle of the field. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire is just one of the most dangerous running backs that the nation doesn't talk about. Going forward, I think that this team certainly can make a run at the playoffs and make a run at the national championship. I think there's so much talent on the offensive side of the football that I think that they could beat Ohio State. I think that they could beat Clemson. I think that they could beat LSU. I mean,
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I just, in my opinion, I just think that first half, and that was the worst half of football Alabama's played all season long. They're not going to play like that again.
Yeah, we've never had a team like that against LSU where they came in here. And I mean, at this point, if I'm saying it collectively, I think Joe Burrow deserves the Heisman. He's there. It's his to lose.
Yeah.
You know, and you know it was a lot. It was hard last night. I mean, of course, you know, any Bama fan takes it a little harder than some, but you know, it's all a part of the game. I mean, any given Saturday, if you don't come in prepared to win or come prepared to potentially lose, you know, you're going to have those struggles. You're going to have those, what Nick Saban talks about. I watch all of his, press conferences, and I hear him talk about, you know, mental errors and, you know, making sure your check downs are right, man to man, it all comes into a big factor. And I don't have any disrespect towards LSU at this point. You know, they're the big dogs on top of the chain ready to take theirs. And they've certainly had to be patient, and they've taken a lot of courage, a lot of determination, and they're going to get to where they need to be. And of course, you know, being an Alabama fan, I'm of course rooting for Alabama, but it's just really going to come down to being mature and opening up the mindset that, as a Bama fan, we have to accept loss. We understand. We've been in this boat before. I mean, when last year when we lost Clemson, it was a hard loss. But we had a lot of people come off of a defense losing to the NFL, and I don't mean to take any more of your time. I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's next year. I mean, we're just going to have to keep growing as a team, as a unit, and know that we have to fight for every game. I mean, when I watched Ruggs and all these star players go in their press conferences, it's just them basically talking about how, we're going to overcome adversity. I mean, LSU came into this game with confidence. They had a strategy, they had a game plan, and they won fair and square. I mean, by a 5 or 4 point difference, it doesn't matter. I mean, they still won, and of course, that every player on Alabama is looking at this like, okay, well, we can definitely improve from this. This is something, miscommunication, drop balls, stuff like that. It's all going to come to surface, and I have the utmost respect and everything that goes for LSU. I know they're going to be successful this year, and just a lot of appreciation. I mean, you still roll tide roll. It doesn't change my mindset at all. I mean, at this point, it's a learning experience to know that you can move forward in your games and continue to grow from it. That's the point. That's what you learn when you go into practice. You are going to be showing effort and initiative to come forward and to move on and beat that next opponent. Don't look at the scoreboard. Just keep going, and they'll do fine. So I'm more so looking towards next season when we have returning running back. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, Trey Sanders returns next season.
Yeah, so I definitely looking forward to next season, but towards the playoffs, it's just at this point, everyone's got to do what they got to do, keep their head up, and, roll tide roll.
All right, well, I appreciate the call, John. Thank you so much for calling in. We appreciate the call in from Tennessee. Appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you, sir.
All right, John from Tennessee calling in. All right, 205-686-3604. Want to get your take on this game. Want to talk about Alabama moving forward. We're talking playoff predictions, what it means for Alabama going forward into the rest of the season. Alabama will take on Mississippi State next this coming Saturday. Alabama favored by 21. I think the over-under on that game is over 50 points, which seems a little low. I mean, I think the over-under for this game against LSU was only, 63 or something like that? They went well past that. Tons of yards, tons of action. Hey, Caleb, what's up, man? How you doing, buddy? Caleb from Memphis on the line. What's up, buddy? Good to hear from you.
Hey, man. I just wanted to get your thoughts on a few things. It's been a while since I'd called in. So I was watching, of course, Bama LSU. You've got your head talked off about that one. But I still think, I was watching some reporters last night, and they were basically saying, Bama's done. They don't have the schedule to back it up. They're finished. Mm-hmm. They're not going to make it to the SEC championship. But I'm looking at all the best one-loss teams, dude. And, you saw Oklahoma barely survive against Iowa State last night. Mm-hmm. You're looking at Georgia, who has a terrible loss to South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And you just start comparing the one loss. Penn State went down. I just don't see how Bama drops out of the top 4 tomorrow night. I think they're going to be in that number 4 spot. And I think if LSU wins out as undefeated SEC champ, I think Bama can grab that number 4 spot. It'll be controversial, of course. Everybody's going to be – it's going to be a one-loss Bama versus a one-loss conference champ from somewhere. But you can't sit here and tell me that one loss to the number 2 team in the country by 5 points with a quarterback that's basically on one leg. The committee themselves have said they take injury into consideration.
You're right.
And so I think with a healthy Tua, if Tua's healthy, I don't think he has that fumble on the 5-yard line. I think he was a little hesitant. I think he could have had a better push off of that right foot. And I think that fumble was all him worrying about making a hard cut and messing up that ankle. So, there's a few mistakes, coulda, shoulda, woulda. But at the end of the day, as of right now, Bama definitely is the best one-loss team. And I know I'm a Bama fan, and you could say I'm saying it through crimson glasses, but I just don't think you sit here and look at the facts. We don't have the best strength of schedule, but you lose to the number 2 team, like I said, by 5 points to a quarterback on one leg. You just can't dispute that. So I just wanted to see what you thought about, maybe at the end of the season, how you think it could all play out.
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, I appreciate the call. 2 calls in from Tennessee, 2 Alabama fans from Tennessee. What do you know, right? I think that when that last touchdown from Devontae Smith to, from Tua, that was so vital. That might have pushed Alabama into the playoffs. And I think you're right, Caleb. When you look at the one-loss teams, I mean, I have them right here. Georgia, right? I mean, as you said, they lost to South Carolina. That was a terrible loss to South Carolina. They do have 2 top 10 wins. They beat Florida and Notre Dame. But as you know, they could get wiped out with a loss to either Auburn or LSU. Okay, so we move forward. Minnesota who's taking Minnesota serious? I know Penn State and they lost. Still got to play Iowa, Northwestern, and Wisconsin. I would assume they could lose to Iowa. They could lose to Wisconsin. And then they still got to play in the Big Ten championship, right? Penn State. They still got to play Ohio State. They have 2 top 25 wins. Their best win is over Michigan. That's not very impressive to me. Oregon, the team that a lot of people are talking about. I think it could come down between Oregon and Alabama. Okay, so who is Oregon beating? Well, they beat. They only have 1 top 25 win, and they lost to Auburn. And just as we talked about with Edward from San Diego a while ago, I mean, if Alabama beats Auburn head-to-head, then how are you going to take Oregon over Alabama, especially if, the only loss that Alabama has is to LSU? I mean, you just can't do it. And then you have Oklahoma, right? Could you take Oklahoma serious, Caleb? No, of course you don't.
No, not
They almost lost to
whatsoever.
Iowa State and at home. And then let me ask you this finally, Caleb. Do you take Utah serious? No, you don't.
No.
And Baylor, are you serious? Do you take Baylor serious? No, come on. So, I mean, there you have it, right? Alabama went out. LSU went out. Alabama's in the playoffs. Probably playing each other again, which the nation wants to see. It's going to be in Atlanta, Georgia at the Peach Bowl. It's going to happen. I mean, it's not going to be controversial because the playoff committee, their job is to put the best 4 teams inside the playoff bracket. And those are the best 4 teams. I don't even know if Clemson's one of those best 4 teams, but they just won't stop losing. So you got to keep them in there.
Right. And a lot of it, see, people get it mixed up that it's the 4 best, not the 4 deserving.
It's the 4
at the end
best
of the day,
teams. Yes, best.
At the end of the day, eye test plays a small role. Don't get me wrong, conference championships should matter, but all conferences aren't equal. Look at Clemson. They're probably going to be playing a Virginia team, which, let's be real, Virginia's not so hot. So that was my argument last year. Clemson basically gets a free pass all year and in their conference championship game. Meanwhile, LSU's got to play probably a number 6 Georgia. So people say conference championships matter, but that doesn't make sense to me because all conference championships aren't equal on the difficulty level.
Correct.
So it just kind of blows my mind. So that really shouldn't be a determining factor to me. I think if it comes down to Bama or Oregon, it depends on the committee. It depends on what type they are. We get a different one every year. If they want to be politically correct, they will take Oregon because they will use the conference championship as a tiebreaker. But like you said, if we're going for 4 best, I don't see how you put them in over Bama, especially losing with, like I said, 5 points to the number 2 team. And I told you this before, he literally posted on his Instagram. He said he had to play that game with basically 1 leg.
Yeah.
And he threw for 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. I mean, come on, man. So props to LSU. They played a heck of a game. Joe Burrow probably has the Heisman wrapped up by now.
Yeah. Joe Burrow, that kid is a baller. He's an absolute baller. The way he played, I mean, that all the respect to LSU and to Joe Burrow. They completely balled out. But this isn't about LSU anymore. This is about Alabama. And I think what we're looking at, Caleb, is the fact that Alabama, just because they don't have the schedule of strength, that them playing so close with LSU is going to make all the difference in the world. And you're right. All conferences aren't created equal. Here's the thing, Caleb, I have for you. What if this happens? Can you imagine if Baylor wins out and they're undefeated? I mean, I
think they would get in.
Could you imagine that? Could you imagine if an undefeated Baylor knocks out Alabama from the playoffs? They're definitely not one of the best 4 teams. Can you imagine if they get left out?
I know. That's just part. It's just disgusting, man. Like you see, like last year, I think Clemson played like a 6-6 Pitt team for their conference title, and we're over here, fighting tooth and nail against like a number 4 Georgia. So
yeah,
I definitely, there's a criteria that they use, but you gotta just use common sense on some of them. You line up Bama and Baylor, and you tell me who you think's going to win that game.
Come on, that's not even. You don't even have to talk about that game. Come on, same thing with Oklahoma. I mean, I think Oklahoma's proven they're not a playoff team. Baylor, same thing. Utah, you're in the same boat. Oregon, you had your chance. You already lost your playoff game. It was the first game of the season. If Alabama beats Auburn, you guys are out. Georgia, your playoff game is against LSU in the SEC championship. Same thing with Minnesota. Minnesota, you're in the playoffs already. You're playing Iowa next in the playoffs. Then you have Northwestern, then Wisconsin. They could lose all those games. Minnesota could. There's no way Minnesota is going 12-0. Sorry. Penn State. Sorry, they're not going to beat Ohio State. You're out. It's going to be between Oregon and Alabama. Alabama's going to beat Mississippi State bad. Western Carolina. That game shouldn't even be played. And then they're going to take on Auburn. Alabama going to Auburn. Who knows what's going to happen in that game because Auburn has a good defense, and Alabama. The last time I was there, Auburn just completely dominated them up front. Auburn has a very good defensive line. Then again, Nick Saban usually is even better after one loss. So no, I appreciate the call, Caleb. Thanks for calling in. Anything else while you're on the show, man?
Yeah, man. I just want one thing. Tomorrow night or Tuesday night, I'm curious to see. It's either going to be Georgia at 4 or Bama at 4. And if they put Georgia at 4 with a loss to South Carolina, I lost a lot of respect for that committee, man. Because you can't sit here and tell me that a one-loss Georgia team to South Carolina is better than a one-loss Bama team to LSU. So we're going to see Tuesday night, but that's just my 2 cents, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Caleb. Please call again. I appreciate you calling in.
All right, buddy. Have a good night.
All right, you too. Hey, can someone look this up? I need to look this up. Someone said that Oregon's AD is on the committee. Is that true? Please tell me that's not true. If that's true, that's completely that shouldn't even happen, right? I mean, that shouldn't happen in this world. All right. Hey, what's going on? You're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Thanks for calling in. Who I'm on the line with and where are you calling in from?
Guess it, Willie.
Hey, what's up, buddy? Turn down your computer volume, please.
Okay.
You got to turn the computer volume down.
That's not true. If that's true.
Are you there? All right, we lost the call. 205-686-3604 is the number to call in. Looks like we've morphed into a college football show. Mike in Kentucky, what's going on, buddy? How you doing tonight?
Yeah, I could be better.
Yeah, you survived last night. I know Alabama loses, maybe they've only lost 3 times since I've lived here in Tuscaloosa, so it's a little strange seeing the day after, but we move forward. So what were your major takeaways, Mike?
Well, I mean, you just have to kind of face the facts at this point. We've taken a step back on the D-line and in all phases of the defense. Linebackers, DBs. We don't have a Jonathan Allen or a Deron Payne or Marcel Darius or Quentin Williams, this year. We just don't.
Mm-hmm.
And the same goes for the linebackers. We don't have a Reuben Foster, Rondo McClain. Our personnel has taken a step back. They are young, but you have to think they should be coached up by this point in the season. LSU came in with a great game plan. Some of their passing routes, man, you got to really hand it to their offensive coordinator. That cat's a master. They were clearing out the flat with the tight end, and that little running back was catching balls in the flat.
He was so dangerous.
Dude, yeah, that little whack-a-mole was hard to tackle, I'm telling you, bro. I've never seen Bama players bounce off a guy that size in my life, but that was wow. You got to take your hat off to LSU. They aren't a paper tiger, like I was saying last week. I was dead wrong on that.
Yeah, they certainly came in and earned a lot of respect. I guess, Mike, the thing with this team is, Alabama has completely moved from 2 things. They no longer just run the football at you, and they no longer have that hardcore defense that they had in the past. It's more like we're just going to load up on offense. This is where we're at in the college football world, and we're going to try to outshoot you. And, that doesn't always work, especially when the offense has miscues.
Well, I watched the Auburn LSU game, and I think Kevin Steele laid the blueprint for playing LSU. And one of your callers earlier tonight was questioning why didn't we press their receivers. We should have the talent to do that.
Yeah.
And when you play off those guys and play zone with those guys, man, they just find the open area, and Burrows can find them. I think Kevin Steele had the right game plan to. I mean, you're not going to stop LSU, obviously, but man, they held them down to a low roar, and I was just like, get up on the line of scrimmage, you idiot. I was watching the guys play off those receivers because they'll just eat you up.
Yeah, it was an impressive performance overall by LSU's offense. I mean, they came in and they just completely had a great game plan and really dominated Alabama from in that entire first half, and they took advantage of all of Alabama's miscues. Let me ask you this, Mike. LSU, Alabama, hypothetically meet again. Does Alabama have enough in the tank to beat LSU this season?
Yeah, we had a couple of cases of Butterfingers in the first half.
A lot of drops, yeah.
Tua just mysteriously drops the football on the ground, and then on the next visit, we spot them 10 points right off the bat. I think we could take them if we played them again, but, that's kind of a big if. We've got to really put the whooping on Auburn. And, it might not matter if Auburn beats Georgia, because I think LSU will take care of Georgia in the championship. But, maybe it'll help our resume a little bit. Whew. We're not controlling our own destiny at this point. And it's kind of a bad feeling.
But it's been this way before. You got to just continue to take care of business. You got to win handedly on the road in Stark Vegas. You got to beat Western Carolina by, 80 points or whatever. And then you got to go to Auburn and beat Auburn handedly. You think Alabama is 3 touchdowns better than Auburn, Mike?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I would say so easily. I mean, if Tua was, still standing up. It's kind of a big if too. A lot of people, last year were saying, let him rest. But, Saban kept playing him, You never know what Saban's.
And let me ask you this, Mike. When you look at the offensive game plan last night, I know a lot of this is on the defense, but why do you think it took Alabama so long to get Najee Harris involved in this game? You would have thought that he would have been a main component to start this game off, especially in the first half when things just weren't going Alabama's direction. Maybe, he was averaging almost 10 yards per carry at one point. Well,
LSU's defense is one of the best in the country against the rush.
That's true. No.
And it was Najee started kicking in at the point in the game where, we almost had to abandon the running game. Mm-hmm. We were down 2 scores for 3/4 of that game, it felt like. Mm-hmm. And I think that helped Najee. They started playing pass more. They had 7 guys in the box most of the day, to start that game. And what really blew my mind was some of the calls offensively. Like we had 3rd and inches, and they pulled a left tackle.
Yeah.
That is not a short yardage play when you pull an offensive lineman. Correct. They just let the defensive end straight into the backfield. Yeah. My son played on the O-line. He was like, that's crazy. It's just some of the play calls just we didn't throw a slant in the first quarter. And that's been our bread and butter play all year. I guess they were scheming to take that away,
Some of those passes were dropped too. There were some drops. There was that one
drop.
Yeah,
Ruggs had one. I think that ball was a little bit hot, and it was a little bit high.
I think Smitty dropped one too.
Coming in hot.
Yeah, Devontae Smith dropped one too, and then Judy dropped a couple. Yeah, it was uncharacteristic night for Alabama going. But 46-41, and like I've been saying all night, that last touchdown.
Saved us.
That might have
saved us. It literally saved us. Yeah. It did. It made that loss not look so bad.
Look at this. Look at this, Mike. They don't score. This is the final score, 46-34.
Yeah, that's a beatdown.
That's a beatdown.
That's a beatdown.
You're at home, you lose, you lose by 12. You're like, I don't know. You had it. Now look at this, 46-41. You're like, oh, onside kick. Who could have done it? So, committee comes out with their new playoff rankings on Tuesday. Will Alabama be ahead of Georgia? It might not even matter because Georgia still have to beat Auburn. And then they have to beat LSU in the SEC championship game. And I don't know if that's going to happen. So, Kirby Smart will do his best. Jake Fromm, he's above average guy. But I don't think they have enough offense to beat LSU. I mean, LSU, that's a great football team.
I don't either. Yeah, but I don't know. It just don't feel good. We're not controlling our own destiny. But
what can you do?
I'd say we're the best one-loss team in the country, but it's really not important at this point. We're just going to have to see how it shakes out. Hopefully, we can win out, and hopefully Georgia will stumble in the championship game, giving them 2 losses. It's kind of insulting leaving Oregon out. I mean, they are a conference champion, but if we just mash Auburn, that'll help our case.
Yeah.
So we got to put a beat down on Auburn. I mean, that's one thing for sure. We got to win aren't we playing them on the road this year?
Yep. Yeah, it's on the road. Be a tough one. It'll be Thanksgiving weekend. So
if we beat them in their own house, that looks, that'll be a good win.
Definitely, especially being the fact that Auburn beat Oregon on a neutral site, So if it does, like we were talking about earlier in the show, if it comes down between Oregon and Auburn, or Oregon and Alabama, rather, the fact that Alabama was able to beat Auburn on the road. Now, they still have to win, obviously, but if they win at home or in Auburn, I mean, that's going to speak volumes to the committee. But I appreciate you calling in, Mike. Thanks for calling in, buddy.
All right. There's one last thing, though, I'd like to say.
Yeah, go ahead.
Losing 5 juniors to the NFL last year didn't help.
Yep.
If we still had Josh Jacobs, I mean, that dude's balling out for the Oakland Raiders now, bro.
Yeah.
He's balling out.
Offensive rookie of the year for sure.
Quentin Williams would be a big help this year, too. He left as a redshirt sophomore. These juniors leaving, Bama loses 4 or 5 juniors every year, and it's hard to, so really our second team is last year's third team.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep. Alabama used to be 3 deep all over the place, but since these juniors have been going to the NFL, it's just hard to stay dominant. I think that plays a big factor in it this year too.
Yeah, and I think now, Mike, if you're sad about those juniors leaving last year that could have been on this team, don't even start to think about next season because the entire offense and most of the defense is gone from this team. No Tua Tagovailoa, no Jerry Jeudy, no Najee Harris, no Devontae
We'll
Smith.
Be down to Mechie and Waddle next year.
You're gonna have
hopefully
Mechie,
we can
Waddle,
get some good recruits in.
And
all right, well, let me get off, Kyle. I don't want to take up the whole night, man. Roll Tide. We'll just see how it shakes out, bro.
Right, appreciate it. Good call from Mike in Kentucky. Yeah, he's right. You're going to be bold on the outside, Mechie, Terrell Shavers. Let me ask you this. Sound off in the comment box. Who at quarterback for Alabama next year? Who's going to be the starter? Is it going to be Talia Tagovailoa? Is it going to be Mac Jones? Is it going to be Paul Tyson? Is it going to be Bryce Young? I don't know. Bryce Young was in Tuscaloosa this past weekend. You can read the exclusive article on BamaInsider.com. Just head over to BamaInsider.com. Look for the free 30-day trial. Sign up. Become a part of the BamaInsider.com family. We'd appreciate hearing from you. Got another call coming in. Hello, you're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Who I'm on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
What's going on, Kyle? This is Jared from Buffalo, man. How's your Sunday?
Oh, man, it was great. I appreciate it. Thanks for asking. It was a day to rest, reflect, watch that second half of the game. Really wanted to see what went right for Alabama because it was a tale of 2 halves, right? The first half was complete trash, and the second half, they did a great job. What's your take on the game, man? You always have such a great perspective.
Well, Kyle, I wasn't shocked, man. I wasn't surprised by the outcome. I called it around 4 weeks ago, and I said LSU would beat Alabama. I remember you came in, you corrected me, and you definitely calmed me down. But what I saw from that Tennessee game was what I saw since week 2 against New Mexico State: substitution infraction penalties, offsides, false starts. Just miscues, the miscommunication on our defense. just the inability for our coordinators to get the play calls right to our players, and they're just looking all confused. I mean, just the same things that we have discussed, the same things that have been problems. It happened in this game, and this team looked rusty in the first half. The team looked really, really rusty. And, you know, I remember we talked about it. I'm like, the way you beat LSU is you can't slow yourself down. You cannot slow yourself down. You have to play the cleanest football in this time of the year. Personally, Kyle, I feel like the bye week hurt Bama. I feel like they were so hot after during the last couple of weeks at home that bye week, I think, slowed the momentum down. Tua Tagovailoa, he didn't practice the last couple of weeks. You can tell the players on the defensive side of the ball, especially in the secondary, you can tell based off of the just how the formations that LSU had that they were just they were confused. I don't know if they didn't. I don't know what happened with the secondary personally with the miscommunication, but it just seemed like that bye week personally slowed down. But all we saw was since New Mexico State, what we saw from New Mexico State, translated into this game. And, I hate to say it from our schedule, but I think that this is what happens when we play the type of schedule that we have, because when we're dominating these type of teams, we really don't know what we need to work on. Yeah. I think after this LSU game, I think we're going to get a better Alabama football team. I think the defense will finally waken up, and I think they'll get better. I think offensively we'll get better. And special teams, I just think all around we'll get better from this game after playing a great quality opponent like LSU.
Jared, when we look at the defense last night, what were the vulnerabilities in your opinion in the secondary? There was a specific touchdown pass that I want to highlight. It was in the second quarter, 13 minutes and 3 seconds of the game. Terrace Marshall, 29-yard touchdown pass. It seemed like good scheming from LSU against Shaheem Carter. But where were the vulnerabilities on Alabama's secondary? Let's start right there. I mean, Trayvon Diggs and Surtain had their hands more than full last night.
Well, the first was LSU out-physicaled our secondary. I know a caller called in and said that we played a lot of zone. We played press. We played a lot of bump and run press, but they out-physicaled us. Terrence Marshall and Jamar Chase was literally being held on every single play. I mean, they could have called holding on every play. They couldn't do it. So we tried to switch up, and we ran into a dime, which is why for those who are questioning why Markel Benton was in the game a lot, was because we couldn't run our regular package, so we ran the dime package. We had six defensive backs. We played 3 men up front. Markel Benton was the lone linebacker. Yeah. But the problem with that formation, Kyle, is that dime formation is our worst formation. It never works for us. But we had no choice but to do it. So we played a lot of zone. We tried to have man-on-man. We tried to play man-on-man coverage, which means that we'll see a lot more Jordan Battle and Jared Maiden, which those guys really haven't played a lot. I would say those guys haven't really played a lot because we don't really go to our dime formations, which causes a lot of confusion. That touchdown pass we ran down with Ben was in the middle. It was confusion, but it was miscommunication between Jared Maiden, Shaheem Carter, and Trayvon Diggs. They didn't know. I think for Trayvon Diggs, I think he bumped him. He was supposed to. He bumped him. He's a little help, but overall wise, it was Jared Maiden, Shaheem Carter. One of those two guys was supposed to get him. Both of them took the wrong guy. Jamar Chase runs up, catches the ball easily, runs in for a touchdown. There was just the biggest thing that I think will happen to us, Kyle, is that we got uncomfortable. We ran a package that I think that we're just uncomfortable with, and all season long, the dime package has been that uncomfortable formation that we've been running, and because we ran a formation that we're comfortable with, LSU took advantage of that. Instead of just running our regular base packages, instead of really trusting Shane Lee and Christian Harris as those guys, it just shows that we just don't have the personnel to hang with LSU.
Yeah, I was curious to get your thoughts on just that, because I felt that LSU's wide receivers, I mean, everyone knew that they're very dangerous, and they were comparing them to Alabama's wide receivers. Completely different, because these are guys probably not as fast in terms of like a top end speed, but just bigger wide receivers, more physical wide receivers, and obviously some of the best wide receivers in all of college football. And then Joe Burrow did a great job last night just slicing Alabama up and down the field. I thought while Alabama's pass rush at times gave LSU's problems, Joe Burrow was, able to escape and show great escapability and extend plays. And that really affected Alabama. They just couldn't get to him. Couldn't wrap up. A lot of missed tackles. And I mean, is that on the defensive coordinator? Is that on the talent on the field? And as you said, Markel Benton was playing a lot last night. I believe Christian Harris had less than 15 snaps. Again, Christian Barmore had just 15 snaps that I saw. I mean, so much for the defense. But I like your point on this, Jarek. The fact that you feel good will come from this. And I think, like all bad things, good will come from it. I think, just like you said, you bring up another great point. The fact that Alabama really hadn't been challenged all year, so you don't really know what you have to work on because you're beating the crap out of everyone every single weekend, right? Now you know.
Yep.
You look at this game and you're like, all right, where are the real vulnerabilities? What really needs to happen? Do we need Jordan Battle to start this entire game? Do we need to rotate in? What exactly do we need to do? Because I really have a feeling that they're going to meet LSU again as we're all talking about the playoffs tonight and looking at the way the end of the college football season could shake out. There's a good opportunity that Alabama faces LSU again, and they have to have a better game plan going in. Of course, they have to take on Mississippi State this week. Let me ask you this. What did you think of Tua's play overall in the game?
He was rusty in the first half, and that clearly showed. He didn't practice in 2 weeks.
Yep.
You can tell the timing, the communication between him and the offensive line, him not recognizing the blitzes, him not changing the play calls when LSU would overload. I remember one particular play when LSU overloaded to the left side and he ran a little slider there, and that was just a big. Tua was clearly rusty in the first half. The ankle definitely bothered him. He was hurt. He was hurt the entire game. You clearly saw it. He couldn't scramble. So he had to try to maneuver himself in the pocket, but you can just tell. I mean, he couldn't really properly step into his ankle. Again, that's why it's super impressive that he was able to zip balls in and just throw those launchers. It's impressive actually because it's like he couldn't step in. He couldn't step in with his throwing ankle. He couldn't throw. So that was really impressive. But he got going in the second half. You saw the rhythm. It came off a little bit. But, as soon as Tua got going, the run game opened it up. And that was really, really impressive. But, Kyle, I'm going to tell you what, the play of the game was the 26 seconds that we allowed Tua Tagovailoa to throw the ball. I don't know what we were thinking. But I did not – why would you throw the ball with 26 – listen, I understand you're trying to score – but when you know you don't have a kicker that can't kick field goals consistently, why would you throw the ball with 26 seconds left on the clock, and then Tua throws the interception that ends up LSU scoring the touchdown? You take that touchdown away, the game is still we're in overtime. Yeah. Or Alabama probably could win the game. Yeah. I couldn't believe it. I love Nick Saban, but to allow a banged up 60% Tua Tagovailoa with an offense that doesn't have a lot of rhythm, you would allow this guy to throw the football with 26 seconds left. It just doesn't make it. And they're playing prevent. So it just doesn't make any sense.
That was a monumental turn of the game because you go in with the halftime score being, what was it at the halftime break? 33 to 13. Yeah, 33 to 13 instead of 26 to 13. And then what was even stranger was the fact that they tried to get something going, and the fact that LSU was getting the football in the third quarter, right? God. So it was like a really bad decision. Jarek, when we look at the college football playoff picture, help me out with this, okay? Got LSU number 1, Ohio State number 2. You got Clemson number 3. 4, 5, and 6. Let's say it comes down between Oregon and Alabama. Is there any chance that the committee takes Oregon over Alabama?
There's a chance because they had the conference championship, but if you're just looking at the eye test, Alabama has clearly been the better team. I mean, if you look at the Oregon Ducks, yes, they had the Auburn game, but if we beat Auburn, if we beat them handily, that will go against Oregon. Yep. And if you look at Oregon's strength of schedule, who they barely beat Washington State. They barely beat Washington, which is 5-4. They struggled against a couple more teams. I forget. I can't really think, but they struggled. But I know they struggled against a couple more teams. Now they had an impressive one against USC, which is good for them. But if you look at the rest of the schedule, they got They got Arizona State, and then they play Oregon State. That's compared to our last 3 games, which of course we got Western Carolina and Mississippi State, but we play Auburn on the road. So I can actually make an argument that we have had the tougher road. And is Utah really a legitimate top 10? Really a legitimate top 10 school? Who has Utah beaten? Utah hasn't beaten anybody. So you can look at the eye test and say, yes, we're better than Oregon. The eye test clearly shows you that Alabama clearly was that. But I think that the tiebreaker could go to Oregon. I'm actually more worried about Oklahoma, though, more than Oregon, because Oklahoma has a stronger strength of schedule than both Alabama and Oregon does. They play more ranked opponents than both Oregon and Alabama. So I'm more worried about Alabama. I think that if we have to go to a tiebreaker between Alabama and Oregon, I think the committee will choose Alabama to get in.
Here's I just posted Oregon's schedule on the screen. So they lost to Auburn, then they beat Nevada. Then they beat Montana. Then they beat Stanford. They beat Cal. They beat Colorado. Barely beat Washington. Barely beat Washington State. USC, they beat 56-24. They have Arizona and Arizona State coming up. And I think they have one more game, Oregon State.
And none of those teams are ranked. None of those teams are ranked anymore in the college football playoff. None of those teams
that's
are
a
ranked.
terrible schedule, right?
See that?
I mean,
yep.
I guess if they beat Utah there at the end, I don't know.
But it's like, who has Utah played? They have played nobody. They played nobody.
Yeah.
So how can we put them in the top? So how could the playoff committee put them in the top 10 when they haven't played anybody?
Mm-hmm.
They base it off the AP poll, which is stupid. You have to look at the strength of schedule. You have to look at, are they dominating football teams? Which Utah, they're not dominating. They're not dominating football teams like Alabama has.
Mm-hmm.
We've had the stronger schedule. Again, it should be if Oklahoma has one loss, if they go in with one loss, they win the Big 12 championship. I know they haven't been dominant, but they've had a stronger strength of schedule. It should be between Alabama and Oklahoma. Oregon and Utah shouldn't even be in discussion. They shouldn't even be in discussion.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think any the Pac-12 team, like I said, it's weird to think about, but Oregon almost played their first playoff game in the first game of the season, and they lost to Auburn. So you're out, right? I know,
Yep.
The way that it's working out right now, that was oddly enough their playoff play-in game. As weird as it sounds, Jarek, anything else while you're on the show, buddy?
I want to talk about this other play real quick, but with Jared Maiden. This was probably the most crucial one of the game right here. Jared Maiden on a free safety blitz with Joe Burrow, misses the sack, which could have brought a third and long situation, which was out of field goal range, which LSU probably could have ended up punting the ball and ended up in our favor, and we could have scored a touchdown. That was probably that and the play where Tua Tagovailoa threw the interception with 26 seconds left were the two biggest plays of the game. We could have sacked Joe Burrow at least 9-10 times this football game. We had a lot of missed tackles, a lot of miscues. I think this was a game where you can make an argument Bama beat themselves more than what LSU did to them on Saturday.
Yeah, the number of quarterback hurries, check this out. 7 quarterback hurries and 5 sacks. They definitely could have sacked Joe Burrow maybe 10 times, which certainly would have been a difference in the game. But I appreciate you calling in, Jarek. Always brings such great stuff to the show. Thanks for calling in, buddy.
All right,
Jarek out in Buffalo. Appreciate him calling in. Good stuff always to hear from him. Take a couple more calls. 205-686-3604 is the number to call in. Want to hear from you. Want to get your take on Alabama and LSU. Want to get your take on Alabama and the college football playoff rankings. The updated rankings will be out on Tuesday night. Both the AP and the coaches poll came out today. Have Alabama as the number 4 team. LSU is the number 1 team. Ohio State at number 2. Clemson number 3. Clemson's actually won 25 games in a row. And then Alabama and then Georgia. So I believe we have another call coming in. Give me a second and I'll miss your call. Just keep calling in. We got a lot of calls coming in. So my apologies if I can't get to you. You can also leave a voicemail to be played on the show later on all the coverage back on BamaInsider.com. If you're not a member of BamaInsider.com, give us an opportunity to earn your business. You can talk with me all day long on the message boards, read our premium content, and get, of course, the recruiting scoop from Andrew Bone. A lot of visitors were in town in Tuscaloosa. Tons and tons of visitors were in town for an electrifying atmosphere. I mean, I think, honestly, with the lights that they have installed at Bryant-Denny Stadium, it's certainly one of the best college football environments in probably the entire country. I mean, they turn on, the fans get going, it's loud, it was packed. It's such a great atmosphere, and really appreciated that game last night. Hey, what's going on? You're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Who I'm on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
Hey, buddy, it's Dwayne. How are you?
Hey, Dwayne. Good evening. How's your Sunday, buddy?
Oh, man, what a Saturday, huh?
Yeah, I mean, that was college football. College football at its finest. I mean, not the first half, but, fans got what they wanted, a good game. I know Alabama didn't come out on top, but the season's not over. So what were your major takeaways yesterday?
First, I just want to congratulate LSU for winning the game. They hands down won the game. I think if the first half had been a little bit better, if, like Jarek said, what in the world are we doing throwing the ball when there's 26 seconds left on the clock? Why didn't you just take a knee and go into the locker room the way it was? It just doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, key point.
Was that? Go ahead.
I just said that was a monumental mistake of the game. I mean, you look at the outcome of the game, it was 46-41. I mean, you don't have that turnover. We talked about it all night. I mean, what a terrible decision. You should have just gone right into halftime. But continue, Dwayne. Go ahead.
Yeah, Nick Saban took credit for making that FUBAR in his press conference, and he didn't put that on the player. He didn't put it on Tua. He said it was his call to throw the pass, and that's what happened. So it is what it is. We can't take it back. There's nothing we can do about it. What do you think about how long do you think that college football is going to stay at this level of pro-style West Coast? You score 70 points, I score 72, and because I don't think it's going to stay that way. I really don't. Because I don't think there's going to be a Joe Burrow or a Tua that's going to be all around all the time in the future. I just don't see it happening that way. I think it's going to have to go back to the way it was with Alabama, playing hard-nosed defense, nobody being able to push them off the line, nobody being able to stop them from stopping the run, and having a good offensive line that allows us to run the football, even if we get 4.2, 4.3 yards on average a play, we can control the offensive line like we used to. We may not be winning games 65-10, but we would be winning games 45-7. Do you think it's going to stay that way?
Yeah,
I don't.
I disagree, Dwayne. I think that this spread, I think it's here to stay. I mean, you look at the quarterback that Alabama has coming in, Bryce Young. I mean, the kid can certainly swing it. And you look at the quarterbacks that are also coming up, DJ Uiagalelei from out in California as well, who's committed to Clemson. I mean, these are guys who can that both have that ability to make the big throw, but also can run on the ground. I think it's just the new age of college football. You're looking at what's happening to the NFL as well. Just tons of points. I mean, lack of defense. I think it's honestly whoever can score most points is going to win championships, and I don't see it going backwards. I personally would like to. I like the ground and pound game. This game has more flash, but I think this, aired out, score as many points as you can. I don't think it's going anywhere.
What do you think if we had played a bump and run on LSU's receivers last night? And try and think what I was going to say. And I don't know what we can do about our inside linebackers. I mean, I talked to you last week about this, about playing the LSU game and having those inside linebackers that we have. And I told you what was going to happen. I told you that they were going to watch the tape, and Burrows was going to eat them alive across the middle of the field. And that's what he did. And you saw that one big play that they had. I think you were talking about it with another caller, where I don't know the receiver's name. It was one of their longer touchdowns where the guy was not covered. There was no red shirt in sight on my screen when the guy caught the ball and ran it in for a score. They were playing zone on that play, and they just can't. They can't play zone. Because they don't have linebackers that can cover the running back coming out of the backfield or tight end. So if we play zone, we're dead. We're dead in the water. The middle of the field will be open no matter who we play.
Yeah, that was Terrace Marshall who caught a 29-yard touchdown pass in the second quarter. That was the play where there was a lot of miscommunication, and then the wide receiver was just completely open and really just walked into the end zone. Yeah, I think the secondary. I mean, the corners are above average. They're good, Surtain and Diggs, but once again, Alabama has struggled with more physical wide receivers. The last team that did that was Clemson, and a good quarterback, right? I mean, that was the same thing. I mean, granted, Alabama played a better game against LSU, but for the second time in a row, you got to question, does Alabama have the scheme to stop a big pro-style quarterback with dangerous wide receivers? I mean, Nick Saban has lost now twice. He lost to Clemson, and now they lost to LSU. Now, this LSU team is very good just because of that running backs, the extra X factor. I mean, as I said earlier in the show, 9 receptions, 77 yards, and then he also ran for 104 yards and 20 carries. He was a monster.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he deserves to win the Heisman Trophy.
Yep.
I think he's already won it, in my opinion. I don't think there's going to be anybody that's going to take it away from him.
Yep.
I don't think at Oklahoma, Jalen Hurts is not in the talk anymore.
I don't think so.
So I pretty much think Burrows is going to, hands down, has got that wrapped up unless something dramatic happens to him or to the team in the meantime.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think about what was I going to ask you? All right, we were talking about how many freshmen that we had playing this year.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of people leaving our team.
Mm-hmm.
Projected 6 first-round draft picks, and we're going to have a lot of juniors that are going to be gone. And we may be playing 13, 14 or more freshman starters next year.
Yeah, I think, to get to your point, I think there's going to be so many young guys playing next year. It's going to be really something we haven't seen. And then we also haven't seen Alabama play a tough front-end schedule like Alabama's going to have next season. I mean, they open up with USC on the road in Dallas, Texas. Their third game of the season will actually be Georgia. So Alabama's going to have new faces all over. And I asked everyone in the comment box, who's going to be the starting quarterback? Is it going to be Mac Jones? Is it going to be Talia?
I think it's going to be Bryce Young.
Yeah, a lot of people feel that it's going to be Bryce Young. I mean,
I've seen him play 2 or 3 times, and he's a gunslinger, man. That boy, he may not look like he's got a strong arm, but I watched him running left, and he's right-handed, and turn around and throw a dart. I mean, that ball was on a line to the other sideline on the other side of the field.
Yeah, Trey
I don't know who that number 11 is that plays on their team, but I think we need to get him on our team as well.
You could have Trey Sanders at running back. He's a freshman, right?
He's going to be awesome.
I think he'd probably start over Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson seems like he's kind of trending down right now. You're going to have John Mechie on the outside. You're going to have Slade Bolden, Xavier Williams.
Jalen Waddle will be here.
Jalen Waddle, there you go. Thank you. Jalen Waddle will be kind of, the star. You're going to have 2 new offensive tackles. You're going to have Evan Neal at guard. You're going to have a different center. I would suspect Landon Dickerson. It'd be interesting to see if he goes to the NFL. And then Deontay Brown is out, so you're going to have a completely new offense next season, which could be scary. I mean, considering that you have Georgia week 3 and USC in week 1. Anything else while you're on the show, Dwayne?
Yeah, I don't see Landon Dickerson going.
Yeah,
I think
fair.
Landon Dickerson will finish out his education and stay with the team. Both of our tackles are both.
They're gone.
They're going to first. I was watching a mock draft, and both of our tackles are going in the draft, or in the first round in the draft if it goes the way these guys thought it would go, and they're pretty good about what they talk about. Last thing I wanted to talk about, Drew, real quick, man, is how do you feel about the player portal?
Oh, the transfer portal? I mean,
the transfer portal.
Yeah, I mean, I knew it was gonna, change college football, and it really has, and I think it's.
Well, it sure changed LSU, didn't it?
Well, what I think has happened too, Dwayne, is the fact that it's put pressure on head football coaches to play a lot of these guys early, and it's almost like the players are like, "Hey, don't play me, I'll get into the transfer portal." And I mean, you've seen it affect Alabama already twice this season with Iyabi Anoma and Antonio Alfano. Now, were those guys going to start this coming season? No, but in terms of the depth moving forward, those guys were eventually going to get in. I think Iyabi Anoma is a guy that certainly would have played this season, and now you lose those two guys. So you lost Iyabi Anoma, you lost Antonio Alfano, you lost Dylan Moses, you lost Joshua McMillan. Looks like LeBron Ray is going to be out the remainder of the season. You lost Wheeler Forrestall. You lost Will Reichert. I mean, talk about all these injuries, and on top of that, the transfer portal. So if you don't play me, I'm transferring. There's no longer like sit and wait. You play me, or I transfer to another school, and that's just kind of the world we went. Just wait till players start getting paid, right? Then
exactly.
When you got players getting paid, the transfer portal. I mean, hey, it's only a matter of time. It's coming soon. All that's coming soon.
Yeah, you think about what you just said. All that happened to us, and we only lost to LSU by 5 points.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's pretty amazing. My opinion on the transfer portal, and I may be way off base, I don't think a scholarship player should be able to enter the transfer portal unless they pay all their scholarship money back. Now, I don't know how you feel about it or whether that's being cruel and unusual punishment, but, we gave you a scholarship. You signed to come play for us. Now you're going to stay here and play for us. I don't think they should be able to just jump ship anytime they don't feel like they're being played enough.
Yeah, it's something that is going to be something's going to have to be done about this. I mean, it seems like it's getting out of control. I mean, and especially the thing that I don't like is when a player enters a transfer portal and then a coach talks to him, then he's out of the transfer portal. It's like in, out, in, out, in, out. Like you either want to be here and you want to be a part of the program, or you don't want to be here. If you want to be somewhere, you sign up and you write it out. I get it. Things change. And this is something I also don't agree with the transfer portal. It's like the better lawyer you have, the better opportunity you have to play, right? I mean, you look at some of these situations. I mean, Justin Fields, he was immediately granted, eligibility at Ohio State, and then other guys can't play, and it's just based off the hardship situation. So I think if you have a better lawyer and you're a better player, you're going to be eligible, whereas these other players, if they don't have the resources or if they don't have the right lawyer, then they're not going to be eligible. That's completely unfair. That's completely ridiculous. So the transfer portal certainly changed college football. But I got to run to the next show, Dwayne. I appreciate you calling, buddy. All right, thank you so much.
God bless you, man.
Yeah, same here, buddy. All right, Dwayne out in Florida. I appreciate the call in. Yeah, I mean, that transfer portal has really changed college football. And just wait, like I said, just wait till players start getting paid. And just wait till you can go buy NCAA football again, right? That's something that I'm certainly waiting for. I'm gonna play NCAA football. I mean, I used to play that game all the time, growing up, right? In high school and college. I mean, I played it way back when I think it was even like 1997 was when the first game came out. I have all the copies, So still play 2014 every once in a while. Got a couple more calls coming in. Hey, what's going on? You're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Who I'm on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
Well, this is probably the most depressed fan from Louisiana over here.
Yeah. Is this Dave from Louisiana? You calling again from behind enemy lines?
Oh, man, you don't know how bad it was. Oh, Lord, have mercy. I had to eat a lot of crow.
Did you have to put on like one of your relatives' LSU jerseys or anything like that?
No, I didn't have to, but a buddy of mine who's an LSU fan, he had one of them little Alabama voodoo dolls.
Oh, yeah.
And I grabbed it from him, ran outside, and threw it in the fire. And boy, I ain't never seen somebody run so fast trying to get it out of there.
Wait, let me ask you, at what point did you do that? Because did you do that like right when Tua fumbled? Because that might have caused Tua's first quarter fumble.
No, I did it right around the onside kick try. I was trying to break the curse. Oh man.
Oh yeah.
But it was a very interesting game, especially in the second half. Alabama started putting it in gear. Tua was hiding the injury. He looked good. But at the same time, after the game was over with and you seen him limping off of there, he was really hiding a lot of it. Because if Tua would have been 100% or even 90% per se, he would have never slid for that first down. Because Tua is not the type to really slide a lot. He'll take a chance, to try to get a first down. It was that interception that Alabama had, and they had 12 players on the field. That hurt us big time because that could have turned it around. Oh man, it was just a very disappointing game on my part. I mean, I'm not going to say per se 100% disappointing because they came back, clawed back, fought back, lost by 5 points to the best team in the country. I mean, I hate to say it, LSU is by far the best team in the country, but, it took 408 weeks or 2,861 days of practice and preparing for LSU to finally beat Alabama.
What'd you think?
That's a long time.
What'd you think of Coach O's antics after the game? I mean, it's just completely, he was full of emotion, so to speak.
He was full of emotion. We see it a lot of times, especially in a big rivalry game. Miami, Florida State. Florida State would come out there and they'll spear, Miami's U or whatever. But, to hear him say this is our house, it made me want to take a ride down to Baton Rouge and, just jump over the fence and take a big old dump right on their tiger eye or something, I mean, I take this stuff seriously, I mean, just like any other Alabama fan. And, today I was on Facebook and, you can't believe everything on Facebook, but if it's true, where these guys were tweeting last night about they wanting to fire Saban and this and that and the other. I don't know if this is some fake Bama fans, or whatever, but there was a post, where they were talking about fire Saban and da-da-da. How can you fire a man who has turned a team around that struggled back years, for a long time before he came, and has lost very, very few games since he's been there since, golly, I mean, why would you want to fire a man like that? I can understand if it was Chad Morris at Arkansas over there. Or something like that.
Yeah, he already got fired.
Yeah, he got fired and got let go.
Yeah.
So some of these guys that call in, I love watching football. I'm not the big guru, I can't read the zone plays. But some of these guys that call in that can, talking about nickel package, dime package, or whatever, hey, there's y'all job opening. Y'all might get in because some of these guys knows what they're talking about. But, there's always next year, I got 364 days of grief, and it really hit me hard. I was hoping Bama could have pulled it out, and there was a lot of plays or a lot of penalties that should have been called that was not called. That face mask on Waddle, That was just, man, there was two refs right there. I mean, watching, and not one flag come out. Not one flag come out. The whole, and that just kind of, I just was like, okay, did LSU buy these guys off? Because they always say we pay the refs off. It was a good game. Props to LSU. Joe Burrow will win the cursed Heisman Trophy and go to the pros and probably be like most Heisman Trophy winners. Not all of them, but a majority of them, and not be that great.
Dave, let me ask you this, Dave. Should Alabama get another opportunity to play this LSU team? Can Alabama beat LSU?
Oh, my God. Man, on December the 8th, if things go like they're supposed to, because I don't see – now, this is my personal opinion. I might be wrong, but I don't see Saban playing Tua next weekend. I don't see him playing the next week. I see him playing in the Auburn game, or he might let him sit down this week. But if Alabama can go undefeated, go without losing the game rest of the way, and somehow Georgia loses, to LSU in the SEC championship, I don't see how Oregon or anybody could really jump Alabama. Yeah, they say you got to have the strength of schedule, blah, 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 this and that and the other. Well, my goodness, they lost yesterday by 5 points. They were down by 20 points at halftime and fought back. Yeah, the defense was kind of, on their heels most of the game. They had some sacks here and there. Like you said, they had 7 hurry-ups and, 5 sacks in the game. But I really do think if Alabama can play LSU one more time in the state of Louisiana, at New Orleans Stadium, in the Sugar Bowl for the national championship, I think this team will finally have clicked on all cylinders in their head, in their heart, and on the field, and it could possibly turn out that Alabama upsets them back over here at the end, next year in January for the national championship if things go right. Now, I don't know how well Ohio State really is, I mean, I don't watch them guys up there. I don't even really – I watch the SEC, It's going to be interesting the rest of the way through. Ohio State could stumble and fall and lose a game and drop out, of the top 4 or 5. But what happened yesterday, hands down, that is the 2 best teams in the country. I can't say that Ohio State could have played LSU that close. I can't say they could have played Alabama that close. I don't know because they hadn't played them yet. But Alabama and LSU yesterday proved, without a shadow of a doubt, that they were the 2 best teams in college football at this present time, even though Alabama lost by 5 points. And I was hoping they'd have got that onside kick, could have went down, and I don't know why they didn't run Najee Harris more than what they did. I mean, he was 7.5 to almost 8 yards a carry. It was it just blew my mind because whenever my buddies were sitting over there, somebody break his leg, and I'm like, no, shut up, man. I don't wish that on Joe Burrow or nothing, but they were like, get him out of the game, and why can't y'all just keep him in the game, And if we had them guys from last year, back, this would have been a whole different game. Our pass rush was way better last year with Quinnen Williams and all them on the line, and it just breaks my heart that they leave so early, especially like this. And now, what if? Now, this is a hypothetical. Now, I don't see it happening, but what if Alabama doesn't make it? And say Judy and Ruggs and Smith and all these guys and Tua says, hey, we're going to go one more. We're going to come back our senior year, Well, how do you think that is even feasibly possible?
No,
Or
no,
fathomably possible?
no.
I mean, I
no.
don't see it either, but I wish it could happen, but
No,
I mean, I don't
those
see
guys. I mean, Alabama fans are lucky if those guys, don't. If Alabama doesn't make the playoffs, I'd be curious to see how many of those guys play in the final bowl game. Right? If they're not playing in the playoffs or the championship, I'd really be curious to see which guys with high draft grades play in a bowl game. I'd also be curious to see which bowl game Alabama goes to if they don't make the playoffs. Could it be the Sugar Bowl
Oklahoma
versus Oklahoma? Could you imagine that? Right? Yeah. I mean, you're talking about a ratings show. I mean, who wouldn't want to see that? Don't put it past, right? I mean, and I'd be curious to see which guys would not play in that game. But I think all those guys that have high draft grades, especially on the offensive side of the ball, are certainly leaving. You're not going to have Henry Ruggs, Devontae Smith, Jerry Jeudy, Tua Tagovailoa, Alex Leatherwood, Jedrick Wills. I mean, all those guys, Najee Harris as well, all those guys are gone next year. And, we'll have to see what the offense can do. I mean, throughout these last couple years, these last couple seasons, Alabama's had one of the most prolific offenses that we've seen really up until last night, because I think LSU obviously proved that, they can go head-to-head. But I got to run to another call, Dave, but I appreciate you calling in and, survive in advance in Louisiana. We'll catch up with you next time.
All right, brother. I'll be still rolling tide over here, that's for sure. Y'all have a good one, man.
All right, take it easy. All right, I'll Dave in Louisiana. I'll take one more call and then I'll wrap it up. But I appreciate you guys joining me tonight. Thank you so much. The schedule for this coming week, Nick Saban speaks again on Monday. Have that press conference brought right here on our YouTube channel. You can catch all the coverage back at BamaInsider.com. Then we're also going to have player interviews, and then you'll get practice footage on Monday and Tuesday and on Wednesday. And then Saturday, Alabama takes on Mississippi State. Game is at 11 a.m., which I'm excited about. As I said earlier, I'm excited to drive to Stark Vegas. And as much time as I'd like to spend in Mississippi, it'll be better to get back home. All right, last call of the night. Here we go. All right, what's going on? You're on the line with Kyle Henderson. Who I'm on the line with, and where are you calling in from?
What's up, Kyle? CFB Jared.
What's up, CFB? How you doing, buddy? Good to hear from you, man.
Man, I'm doing great. This is about my 50th time calling in. I finally got in, but that just means your show is growing. So,
hey, thank you so much. And I know you're always in the comment box, and I appreciate you and everyone else. I never thought that I'd even be having a call-in show when I started this YouTube channel, but it's good to see things growing, and I hope you guys like the quality content. We're always trying to improve. So thank you so much for calling in. So what were your major takeaways from yesterday's game, CFB?
Definitely that Trevon Diggs needs to hit the weight room, because that guy was getting manhandled out there by Edwards-Helaire. I saw it, I think, about 4 times where it was a 3rd and 10. They would, LSU would throw it. No one would be open. They would, Helaire would lift out of the pocket and into, wide open. Burrow would throw it to him. Edwards-Helaire would be open for about 3 yards, and then Diggs would meet him, and Edwards-Helaire would push Diggs 7 yards for the first down. That really pissed me off, because, it kept happening over and over and over. Mostly to Diggs, but sometimes to Maiden and Surtain as well. But just that really killed us, because we shot our foot, and we shot ourselves in the foot in the first quarter, reloaded, shot ourselves in the foot again in the second quarter. But we were able to come back, and when the defense, they were clutch in the third quarter. They shut out LSU in the third quarter. But when we needed to stop them in the fourth quarter, our DBs were unable to make the tackle, to save, because plenty of times, like I mentioned, it was 3rd and 10 around the 50, around the 45. And, that's kind of out of field goal range. So we would have probably gotten the ball back, with time to try to go down and score. Whether we would have scored or not, it's just upsetting that we weren't able to have that opportunity because the defense was not able to, get the tackle.
Yeah, I think the two last drives by LSU, when they went down the field, both 75 yards. I mean, I think that just said a lot about the offense, and I think it said a lot about the Alabama defense. They just had no answers for LSU's offense. And that's why I've been asking a lot of our callers tonight, do you think that Alabama could beat LSU should those two teams meet again? I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure they have the talent on defense to do so, because who's to say that this game wouldn't be the exact same? Now, Alabama's offense, of course, is one of the most explosive, if not the most explosive in college football. But I just, like Jarek from Buffalo was saying, these vulnerabilities finally caught up to Alabama, and they hadn't played a good team like they played last night. And I'll be curious to see if this team takes a step forward, going forward, and to see what type of defensive adjustments are made with the defensive personnel, because I'm not even sure if Alabama has the talent on the defensive side to make improvements, because they're already playing the guys that they have. It's not like they can swap in. I mean, there's a lot of young guys playing, and this is the depth that they have. And it doesn't look like Dylan Moses is coming back, Joshua Millen, LeBron Ray. So these are the guys you have. So it's all about schematics now for Alabama going forward. What else you got, CFB?
I feel like if, say, you cut the amount of mistakes we made in the first and second quarter, cut it, in half, I think I know this is a coulda, shoulda, woulda, but I think we probably could have won the game, being that the pick cost us 14 points, and then, fumble cost us 3 to 7 points.
Mm-hmm.
You want to put it in that situation, that's 21 points that we could have scored when we lost by 5. So, I don't, gosh, that we were on fire in the first drive. We were successful, so we got down to the goal line, and Tua just fumbled it. I don't know how you fumble that. Like,
that was such a strange play. Yeah.
Dude, I got the same size football. I put it in my hands. I don't know how the heck you fumble that. Like, how is it?
So
I don't know
strange.
what the heck. I don't know what the heck happened there, and that just killed our momentum. The play calling wasn't that great either in the first quarter. And, these aren't really excuses. It's just, why and how we lost, in my opinion. Just we shot ourselves in the foot so many times in the first quarter that, even when we came back and made it close, we just weren't able to, get it done. Playoff-wise, I think we're still I think we still can get in. I think we'll get put in over an Oregon team, who doesn't have any good wins, and if not, has some really bad wins, considering that they nearly lost to Washington State. They nearly lost to, Washington. They kept it close with Cal, 17-7. They also lost to Auburn. If Alabama can beat Auburn by 14 points or more, I definitely think that solidifies our spot over Oregon. And I feel like with Georgia, it's it's up to LSU and Auburn. If Auburn can beat Georgia, I think that definitely solidifies our spot. Or, Auburn doesn't really have to. It's just if LSU can beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, then I think we're in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have a solid chance. And, some of the LSU fans in the comments don't want to hear it, but we have a solid chance. I don't care what the heck they think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's still an opportunity. Now, CFB, what did you think of the play of Najee Harris? I mean, it seems like he started peaking around the middle of the season, and now he's playing at an exceptional level. He's probably playing like one of the best college football running backs out there. What did you think of his play, especially in that second half?
He was amazing. He has 190 yards of total offense, with 44 receiving, 146 rushing. That guy, maybe we could have given it to him more in the first half. He broke that 31-yard run, in the first drive, and then we kind of seemed to shy away from the run a little bit there. But I think he played amazing, and, we definitely could have ran him more, but, for what he did, keeping us alive in that game, I think it was huge, and, hopefully he can continue that. He has been peaking around the right time, and, he came out and showed out versus, an LSU defense who was very good at stopping the run. So I was happy to see that for him. I definitely think he made some money draft stock-wise, this Saturday.
Now, I want to get your take on this towards the end of the show. Do you think that Alabama should sit Tua for this weekend's game and the game after? I mean, that would give him plenty of time to get 100% leading up to that final conference game against Auburn. What's your take on that?
In my opinion, no, because you saw that, he only had around, 1 week of practice this
probably like under 10 days, yeah.
And, a lot of that was very, caution and limited. He's got to knock. I know, he was playing better in the second half, but you saw on some of these slant routes, I know there was drop balls by receivers, but on some of the slant routes, receivers were open. He was just overthrew them by a yard or or threw it behind them by a yard. And I feel like, maybe versus Western Carolina, I believe, who we played in 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But, Mississippi State, they're still an SEC team. You know how Nick Saban goes. So I don't think we'll sit him. I'd rather him, maybe take it light on practice this week, and just try to, get his timing in sync, and then, go full throttle for Western Carolina and Auburn, because we need him to be, we need him to be healthy for Auburn. But I feel like in 3 weeks, because if we can blow out Mississippi State, he'll be out of there by the time the second half starts.
Yeah.
So if I just want him to get that rust off so he's fully ready, health-wise and, playing-wise, because, he can be fully ready for Auburn but not have his timing synced up, because he hasn't been practicing with the receivers a ton. So just, knocking off some of that rust in game, I think is pretty important, as well.
All right. Very good call to end the show, Jared. I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you so much for calling in, and we'll catch up with you next time, all right?
All right, you have a good one.
All right, you too, buddy. All right, CFB Jared always calling in with the good stuff. All right, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I sincerely appreciate everyone calling in. I know there's a lot of LSU fans. Credit, you guys did a great job. Your team certainly impressed everyone in the country. I mean, Joe Burrow, phenomenal. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, phenomenal. The defense, a lot better than I thought they'd be. Alabama has a lot of work to do. There's a lot of vulnerability still on the defensive side. Alabama has to win out. I think we can all agree with that, and the fact that LSU has to win out. And I think that will bode well for Alabama, being that the score was only 46-41 instead of 46-34. How big was that last touchdown? Thanks for everyone who called. A lot of calls from across the country, from San Diego to New York. Be safe out there. Be good people. If you are past or present member of the United States military, thank you so much. We sincerely appreciate what you do for this great country. Be good people out there. Thank you so much for joining me. You can follow me on Twitter, rivals_Kyle. All the coverage back at BamaInsider.com. Thank you so much. Take care of each other. We'll catch up with you guys next time. Until next time, good night.